Geez, would have helped if I turned my microphone on there. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you guys. Welcome to everybody here. I know it's been a hot minute since I did this, so kindly forgive my absence over the past few weeks. I think it's been what 4 or 5 weeks since I streamed anything. Uh, as all the other leather workers can relate to, this being the Christmas season, I had a bunch of orders I wanted to get out, and I wanted to make sure I got them all done. So as much as I enjoy streaming, it does slow me down a bit to do it. So I wanted to make sure I had taken the time to do everything the way I wanted to without having to worry about rushing through a stream or rushing through a project. So I decided just take it easy for a little bit and you'll get my work done. And that brings us here. This is I may have to double check myself before I wreck myself on this one, but I believe this is my final order destined for delivery on Christmas. So this should be my last actual Christmas order. Everything I work on after this has all been promised after Christmas. So if I get it done before, then it's, everybody's happy. But if I don't get it done by Christmas, nobody's upset. So this being the final one, I figured I could take a day and work on a little bit. And this one also is for an old friend of mine, one of my very first customers, Armando. If you're watching, Armando, thank you again. I hope you're here. The first wallet I ever did for him was a specialized money clip design, and I live streamed it on Instagram Live, and that one was marked by my the catch basin for my bell skiver falling off the bottom, and all the scraps dropping onto the floor. Then I did a POV vacuum session and cleaned it all up. My wife was out of town, so she never knew the difference. So everything was fine and everybody was happy. Don't tell her I said that. But today we're going to be working on a mid-wallet design, which, if you're familiar with that, it's a small, compact card wallet, basically. No billfold on this one. 4 card slots, 2 per side, and then a bill slot behind each one. And this one's going to be made all from marine Saffiano. Really nice stuff. Armando and I went back and forth trying to find something that we liked for the exterior. There were a couple options that we looked at, but nothing quite matched the color of this in a way that we liked. And what's funny about this one is I showed him I have 3 different hides, all of marine Saffiano, and every single one is a different color in some way. So the differences between dye lots is a very real thing that you'll have to work with as you go through this stuff here. So get used to that as you're working with some of these struck through, dyed fully leathers like that. Steve, let's see, you're starting a high-end briefcase with Baker. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I've never had the opportunity to work with Baker, so I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on it and how that turns out. I'm sure it'll be beautiful. I know that I said in Discord, I've said many times that I would never do it again. I would never hand-stitch another briefcase, and yet, here I sit, as God is my witness, I'm going to make another briefcase. I'm going to do it. I'm actually going to take a bit of time off from wallets early next year and do some bag design work. I've as much as I like making wallets and it's good business, I want to get back to doing some more experimental and artistic things, and bags happen to be a good way of outletting that kind of creative desire. So I'm gonna make a couple of those, and I think I'm gonna make another briefcase. I don't know if I'll quilt it like that one. Maybe one of them. We'll see. But that's my plans there. So I ask, what would you use for the outside of a nice briefcase? And I've been thinking of using Togo, which is really pretty, but the distributor here, Rocky Mountain Leather, they're out of everything but the Attain Gray color, which is nice, but at the price they're asking for it, I don't necessarily know if I want to drop that much money on not my first choice of color for that. I'm trying to get something in navy. So if you have any good suggestions for a nice navy leather that would be good for bags, I'm thinking of Chev, but I don't know. I haven't quite decided yet. I know it would take at least 4 or 5 Chev hides, so no matter what I do, I'm going to be probably around easily $200 to $400 for materials for it. So I got to figure out what exactly I want to do. I don't know. Anyway, I hope all of you are well. It's good to be back here, so I guess we might as well get to it then. I've started. I got a late start today because I really like to sleep, so I didn't get up until 10. That's my usual way of operating here. Let me adjust my camera here real quick. Hang on one second. It's a little dark. I don't know how much better that is, but that's a little bit better. You can kind of see it now. We're going to be using Marine Saffiano, and I got a whole 2 card slots cut out before it was time to start. So we'll pick up where I left off here. I've got, we're going to get some of the smaller pieces done here today. And this wallet is this will be a fully lined wallet. So you can see here on my V slots here, I've cut a good sized flap across the back there that we'll skive down and glue and fold over at the top to make the to line the back side there. Just trying to find a piece of the hide that I want to use for. I might as well just go right. Now with doing fully lined card slots, you can make use of some of these rougher parts here. It's hard to tell here, but getting towards the flank of this hide here, we start to get into some rougher texture that's less nice. But it's still dense enough to use, and it's just fine for a liner that you're never going to see. So if you want to maximize your use of the hide, when you're doing fully lined stuff, you can start to get into some of these, quote-unquote, less desirable parts of the hide and still make very good use of it. Then you save all your nice, beautiful parts for what is actually going to be seen. So this one here, normally I would not do this with a fold because I've got the scalp here, but in this case, the customer has specifically requested a hard, straight line across the top of that. So I'm actually going to be able to just, rather than having to do it with 2 separate pieces, I am going to be able to just fold it over and glue it down. There's our one exterior card slot there. We'll do the other one now. Should be enough to start with for now. Let's need 2 here. 2 short pieces here. Make use of here again. Hey, thanks for the sub. Much appreciated. Armando had asked me, I don't know if he's here yet or not, but he had asked me, would there be any sea stories today? And there might be, depending if there's time. Coming up here in the United States is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, which, you can't have a leather stream without talking about Pearl Harbor, right? So I might talk about that here once we get into the nitty-gritty of this stuff here. Steve, I confess I'm not familiar with Baker bag hide. That's a new one to me. But I'm very curious. Okay, so we have the makings of our interior card slot. So here is this piece, the outermost card slot. Here are the V slots that go up, stack up behind that. And these 2 little guys here are actually more or less veneer. They are this part. Oh, well, it's covered up by my mug there. But they are actually this part up here. And they drop down to a taper below the fold of the second card slot. So this is all the extra space we need on that. Let's go ahead and refine this shape a little bit now that we've done our rough cut here. I know some of the more production-oriented guys are watching me do this in horror as I just kind of lazily go through and mark it all out. But I find that I've refined my assembly process so much that I can afford to take a little bit of time here, and I can take this leisurely. It doesn't kill me to sit here and kind of go through this slowly at my own pace. One there. Other one. I have to remember that this one has to be the other direction. I have to flip it over. Back side. And as soon as I get these drawn out and I have them trimmed a little bit more. We're going to take them over to the bell skiver, thin the edges out. This is going to be folded. We're going to double up the thickness there, so we want to thin out the edges so we don't make it too bulky. Another specific request for this wallet is they wanted it to be a little thicker at the edges, a little denser, which is normally the opposite of what most people ask for. But I like that because I think that there is a point where you can make a wallet too thin, where it doesn't feel nice anymore, or it doesn't hold up. Jeff, these are 0.5 millimeter thick, roughly. And this one is actually a little bit on the thicker side, so I'd say this is probably closer to 0.6, maybe 0.65 thickness. They split this a little bit heavier than I had asked for, which is typical. It all comes out in the bell skiver. But yeah, generally when I'm doing fully lined, I try to keep within 1/10 of a millimeter of 0.5 millimeter for the overall individual layer thickness. And I find that is the sweet spot. These ones here should be pretty close already. These slots shouldn't need much trimming. You proud of yourself, Oil Boss? You will not get a nya from me, sir. Not today. Nya, hello. Dear God. With friends like these, you know? Alright. Now we're trimming these down. We're going to save these little scraps here, because we're going to use them to test the settings of our bell skiver, which we'll be going to in just a second. And I saw there was some discussion about the bell skiver maintenance in chat. Hopefully I don't make a fool of myself today with using mine, but we'll see what happens. Afternoons, Almana, nice to see you. And we're just trimming these down. We're just getting these margins a little bit closer here. I technically don't need to do this, but I like to. It's easier to keep track of how far away I am from the edge on the bell skiver. But let's go ahead and go over there. So hopefully you can still hear me. I'm on the mobile camera now. And as you can see, the bell skiver is a holy mess. I have been it's been a busy couple weeks here, so I've got a bunch of scrap pieces here that I've been holding on to. And with the skiver, scrap is important because this thing will it will surprise you, and in some cases it feels like every single day it's changed the way it wants to operate. Let's do a test run here. Let's see how it's cutting today. It's actually cutting pretty good. Shockingly. That can't be right. Let's try it one more time. Let's grab a piece of scrap here. Let's do one more run and make sure. It could be cutting a little better. So we're going to go ahead and sharpen it. Now this actually came up the other day in chat. I'll bump the camera here real quick. But sharpening the bell skiver. It is not enough just to sharpen it. You also have to dress the stone. Apparently not everybody got one of these. I did. It came with my bell skiver. But this is the dressing tool for cleaning the sharpening stone. You take this and you run it, you hold it up to the stone there, and it just beats the devil out of it. It breaks all of that gunk off of it, and it makes the stone, clean again. And then you have to run it a little bit because it's going to be, it gets a little wibbly wobbly after doing that. But once it wears itself back in, it's good to go again. So this stone I have pretty well dressed. It's pretty sharp, it's cutting pretty aggressively right now. So I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to clean the bell out. I'm going to feel the edge of the knife. That feels pretty good, but it could have a run through. I find that this machine is very finicky when it comes to splitting Chev and Sapiano. And it requires a constant attention to get it to do what you want it to do with these leathers in particular. We're going to turn it on. You notice I'm running it at low RPM. I'm going to turn it up more or less to the max. Let's take my marker here. And I need a new marker. There we go. Just like sharpening, any stone, you want to mark the edge there, or sharpening any blade. You want to mark the edge so you can see where it's actually engaging, because with these here, you have to remember that as you're using that stone, you're shortening the length of this bell here. And the stone itself can degrade, especially if you just dressed it with that tool there. So you want to be sure of where you're actually engaging the bell on there. So I want to make sure that I'm engaging the edge and not just grinding back here, which would do me absolutely nothing. So here we go. That should do. Doesn't take much more than that. Let's try it with another piece through here. That should be good enough. I think that'll do. All right. On these here, I don't want to skive all 4 sides of it. I actually just want to skive 3. And remember, one of these sides is going to be the outside edge. So this one here that I've left this big margin on is going to be my actual outside visible edge. This one here is going to be the fold. This one I want to skive flat. I want to leave this one a little thick because it gives me some extra density at the bottom of the edge there. And these ones here I can skive because, again, they're going to be folded, and at the outside edge, I want to make sure I kind of limit that a little bit. So, make sure we've got the right one here. Let's send it. How'd that do? That did okay. That could be better. Let's see. Actually, it's pretty consistent. I just hit a thin part of the hide there that got toward the outside edge. And again, as mentioned previously with this one here, we want this one to be a little bit thicker than normal, so that's okay. Now this one here, you'll note I don't go along the bottom. I'm just going down the 2 edges there, so I really only want it to be at the fold there. I don't want to thin this out because this is only a single layer, so I want that extra density for my thread to go through. That's a good cut there. That's cutting nice. We're getting into some denser grain of that hide there, and it's responding better to the bell knife. And again, with some variance to the overall thickness in general, some areas are already thin. There's very little for it to be able to dial that down some more. Really want to get this feathered down as flat as I can. Just like this. Doesn't matter. I don't think it does. Pretty good. That should be sufficient for that. That should, did I do both sides? I don't think I did this one. I didn't. There we go. We'll head back to the main camera here. Ah, yes. That's what I'm drinking as well. I think I'm drinking, they're all dark roast, old boss. I've got my nice, cute, got my cat mug. Remember which hand is covering it. There he is. He's sleeping. He's playing. He's looking at you. That's him. He wants you to get his belly. So not the 100% cleanest skive it could be, but it's good enough. This one here, again, like I said, this one here, you notice how it kind of tapers out there. It actually gets thinner here, so it's actually evening it out to that point there. This one here, again, a little denser, a little more consistent thickness there, so we have a nice straight skive on those parts there. Like I said, Saffiano is kind of a pain to run through the bell skiver. I probably could have sharpened the blade even more than I did, but this is still good enough. Again, we want to leave a little bit of extra thickness on this one. All right. So now it's time to actually fold these and make them into the pieces that they're supposed to be. Do some quick markings on these real quick. When I'm doing the fold over for the V-slots like this, I always do them the width of my ruler. Kind of keeps it consistent, keeps it easy for me, so I know where to mark my fold guidelines. And these ones here are just getting folded perfectly in half, so no need to mark anything on that. If you're new to folding card slots, here's the way I like to do it. I've marked 2 lines on this. This is the fold, and this is where the fold actually ends. So what we're going to do, we're going to take some tape. We're going to tape this down. I like to tape it to my block of granite. Tape it down there, so now I know that when I fold this over, that edge has to come right there. I also know that's the only place I need to put my glue. Keeps me from making too big of a mess there. I find Saffiano to be one of those thirsty leathers. I like to build up a good layer of glue on there. Keep it wet, because it tends to dry very quickly. Oftentimes before I can even work the piece down. When you're doing this, you want to work from the middle out. That way you're moving the glue out towards the edge, rather than pooling it in the middle. You can take another flat piece. In this case, I'm just using my glass slicker. Just press it down flat. That gets it pretty good. You can take it again and work down. Oh. Do that a couple times. There we go. There is a nice folded card slot. We'll leave that sit for a second. That's not done yet. There are a couple things we have to do to that yet, but it's pretty close to it. And same thing here, we're just going to follow right from the line there. No muss, no fuss. We know that's right where that goes. Put the glue on and send it. It is easy to overthink this stuff. This is a pretty simple and damned effective way of doing this. Down with the thumbs. Press it again. And some leathers fold easier than others. Saffiano being a pretty stiff and dense leather, it tends to resist at times, so you really have to kind of bull it down. There we go. That one didn't fight too much. We'll leave those, we'll let those dry a bit. Now this one here, we know we just have to fold it in half pretty much, more or less. Actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna do it the complicated way. I'm gonna mark it all out. Mark it all out, just why not? This edge I know is going to be the inside. I know I want it to terminate as thin as it can get. Mark that as the hard edge there. I know that's where that has to end. See, what I'm actually trying to do, I'm just trying to mark the bottom edge. As you see, I have all this extra space down there. I want to make sure I use it the right way. That's actually all I need to do. Fold it over. I know that line there is where that has to end. Hey, thanks, Armando. Good to see you. So again, this is Armando's wallet. Rather, it's for a friend of his, but same difference. Yeah, I actually, I woke up and got a shower and combed my hair and shaved and all that jazz just for you. And it's funny, I made, Oil Boss and I were talking about the coffee there. I made my last pot of coffee from my box of beans I had there. My wife was like, "Oh no, are we out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we are, but it's fine. Armando just sent us some, so it'll be here shortly." I actually half expected it to come today, but it looks like tomorrow. There we go. There's our bottom edge mark. Now with the shop being a little dusty, we have a little bit of particulate on the back here. That just brushes right off. Not a big deal. And again, with it being Saffiano and it being a little denser in general, really not, even if you do get some particulate glued into the two pieces back there, this is the kind of leather that does not show it. The other ones, like very thin chev or things like that, you'll see particulate glued in there from a mile away. So on certain ones you have to be careful. This is one of those ones that is more forgiving. But you can see I have to keep that glue fairly liquid, fairly thick, because it is already drying up and getting soaked in. Yeah, fold it. Working from the bottom up through the center, up to the top. Get the top flat in the middle, like that. Pinch it there, and then work it out to the sides. Sit flat. I mentioned in Discord, and I mentioned earlier here as well, that I might talk about Pearl Harbor today. Being as today is December 5th, Pearl Harbor Day is December 7th. Those of you who know me know my inclination to talk about naval affairs and things like that. I might talk a little bit about that. We're getting to that point where it's almost talking time, especially once we start stitching stuff. Last fold we have to do, I think, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. May have to pause and get a glass of water here real quick for breakfast. My wife did a Japanese style breakfast where we had some salted salmon with rice and Japanese tamago, the rolled egg, miso soup, and of course, good cup of coffee. Yes, it does, Jeff. That crisscross matters. It does not all fit. It has to go the same direction, or you'll notice it. So if you're following the crisscross, you have to make sure you follow the same angle on the crisscross. I like to do the Saffiano at 45 degrees. I've seen people do it, horizontally, at 90 degrees. I think the 45 looks nicer. But yes, if you put a 90-degree piece next to a 45-degree piece, you will definitely notice it. At least I would. I look for that kind of little thing. Being in the painting business, you tend to immediately be able to pick out smaller differences between panels of things, whether it be a car or a wallet. I notice it from a mile away. Almost every time my wife and I go driving, I can't help it. I have to point out every car I see that's been repainted. It just stands out to me. I can tell instantly. thickness. Okay, so we've got our pieces ready here, our card slots. The next step to finishing these is going to be to crease them, because you notice when you do that fold, I don't know how much of it you can see there, at the fold itself, and especially with Saffiano, you'll notice that grain pattern that we were just talking about does kind of get smushed down a little bit. You'll see it kind of, and you've got a little bit of a lip there. You can just barely see when the light catches it. See how it highlights there, that little bit of rolled edge there. We don't want that. And what gets rid of that, and also looks nice, is we crease the top of it. That smooths everything out and hides all sins. Take the creaser, and we're going to start with the back. And Saffiano, again, it being quite dense, you need a little bit more heat and a lot more pressure to really make any kind of mark on it. So now, check that out. So here, again, we've started with the back side. There's our crease there. Look what I did to the front there. If you notice at the top there, you can see the grain gets flattened even more. So we have a nice, clean, flat space to leave that crease on there. And also, in doing that, we took out that little lip that was there. That's all gone now. Now when we do the front side, that looks pretty. I find Saffiano to be one of the prettiest creasing leathers of anything. Just a true delight to work with. Now we've got that nice rolled edge there, so that top is all done and dressed. There's no further work needed to it. If this had been with the scallop, like I normally would do, I would have to cut that and paint it and all that, but in this case, I don't have to, because it's just a clean fold. And again, that was a specific request from Armando. They wanted the straight cuts on the bottom card slots there, so that's why we're doing it this way. Start on backside. Really press it down. Really flatten out that little lip there. Then when we come back from the front, that is perfection. That looks nice. That. I think if you're getting into fine goods and you're kind of new to it and you're looking to really elevate your work, one of the first things you should invest in should be one of these electric creasers. It is astonishing how much just a simple little line like that adds to the overall appearance of something. Really remarkable. Okay. Here's all our card slot pieces. Close to being ready, but not quite. We have to do a little bit of trimming yet. I actually need to... Oh man, my blade is completely dull. I had just changed this blade. But whatever I was cutting through really shredded it. Yeah, I did just change it because the other side is new. I think, man, that should not take that much work to do that little cut there. I know, Jeff, and it bugs me. It shouldn't, but it does bug me to see that. And of course, you know, it's all personal preference. Everybody's aesthetic preferences differ. I don't know, man. It adds so much. For these days, at least, such little cost, and certainly such little time cost. Back in the day when you could only get the regads, you know, you'd be dropping a couple $1,000s on that with all the tips. I mean, now the Crimson Hides units for $400 or $500, you can be good to go. That's trimmed there. I need to cut 2 little winglets out of this. And that is for card slots to rest flush against one another. Usually go in about 1/4 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch to make room for that to sit next to one another like that. There, and then after this is done, we're pretty close to being able to start putting sucker together. Actually have something to show for the past half-hour work. I didn't feel like it. I feel like it took longer than that. I don't know. I guess I'm just unused to streaming. I do want to get back to doing it. I enjoy streaming, but like I said, it just it slows me down too much for this time of year. And I'm really pressed for time. I kind of just can't devote the time needed to doing this. Really need to get things done. And I did. So it's all good. There we go. So with those done, that again lets us lay our card slots like that, flush with no gap between each other. We need to do it for these pieces too. These little fellas up here. Should be here. One there, same thing. Exact same concept. Just did here. This one here, I want to run through the skiver again real quick. Not entirely. There we go. That one there, for whatever reason, had a little bit of softer grain there. Just a little trickier to cut. I don't know why, but just one of those oddities. And that's a good way of doing it, Tom, because even having the creaser is not the same as knowing how to use it, knowing how to make everything else good. The rest of the piece has to be equal to the decorations on it. I think you did it right, and as far as I'm concerned. Zelm, yes. I do have, now you'll notice, and again, forgive me, I normally have my little indicator here, my little piece of tape to mark where my camera's focused. So I've been working a little bit lower than I should be, again, just out of habit over the past 5 weeks of doing this with nobody watching, so bear with me. But I'm lining it up, so I have that line there for the start, but otherwise, yes, I'm just eyeballing them out to the edge there. I basically just shifted over, a couple 16ths of an inch and pull it to the side, and that's it. It doesn't need to be much more than that. From having done so many, I get it usually pretty much spot on, but even if there is a little bit of variance to it, many sins can be hidden. There we go there. So that should be all our trimming done. Take this and police up this mess here. I really need to police the entire workshop up. And what I did last January, I tore the shop apart from top to bottom, and I threw out everything I wasn't using or sold it and gave it away. And I had a nice clean shop for this year. And now, having reached the end of this year, I'm very cognizant of how messy it's become. So I'm looking forward to finishing up all my orders, just taking... It took me 4 days last year to do it, so it'll probably take me about that much this year as well, to go through the shop, organize everything, clean it all up, throw it out, and have a nice, fresh workspace again. Yes, absolutely. Please ask any questions that come to mind. I I do this as much for myself as anybody, but I do like getting the chance to explain certain things. I had a piece of scrap salpa here that we're going to use. It ended up being exactly the right size. So this is actually going to be the structure of this. We're going to have a piece at the top there, our V-slot underneath it. That'll get stitched to the back here. And the reason I'm doing this middle layer here is it allows me to stitch this down and cover up the stitch on the back. So when you reach in there, which you will, you'll be putting bills and things in there. When you reach through there, you won't feel any stitches. You'll just feel finished leather. That does come with a corresponding cost in thickness, but with the right amount of skiving and the right construction, you can work around that. Again, as I keep mentioning, we're not as concerned about thickness on this one, but you want to be cognizant of it nonetheless. Glue that guy down there. That's what our actual finished assembly is going to look like, and you can see how all our lines, all our guidelines on the edges there line up, and it creates that shape. When we trim it down, that's what it will be. One more piece of this salpa or salamander, whatever you want to call it. This is just bonded leather, basically leather scraps. They take them, boil them, mash them, and stick them in a stew, and it comes out as this. And it's fairly tough. It's tougher than you'd think for being, you know, scrap leather like this. But it is nice, and it's got good tensile strength. It does not stretch. It's easy to work with, and above all, it's very inexpensive. So I have a giant roll of it here that will take me quite a while to work through, but I'll show you. And another reason to tear down the shop and arrange everything is to have a better spot for that, but it is as tall as me, just about, and it is a big old roll. I think I've got like 24, 25 square feet of this. So it'll be a good while before I work through this. The only problem with having so much of it is it does get kind of awkward with putting it up on the bench and cutting it. I almost might be better off just using scissors, but here we go. Put this back for now. Bump anything with it. Going to have to go back to the skiver with this. We do want to get this down at the edges. This is, again, 0.5 millimeter thick, so same thickness as everything else. And that doesn't sound like much, but when you start adding, you know, figure we're at, each of these is 2 layers. This is a layer, and the liner layer, that makes 4 layers. You do have to be aware of that. You know, 4 times 0.5 millimeters is 2 millimeters. That's a fair bit of thickness there. So you want to try to account for that whenever you can. Well, you can use it for everything, yeah. But my advice with practicing stitching is it's better off just to make something with it. If you're going to go through the effort of practicing the stitch, you might as well practice everything, rather than wasting time with, at least in my opinion, wasting time just doing the one thing. You can practice stitching and practice making a piece with it too, which is my usual recommendation. I see people asking about that, and that's always been my response. If you're gonna practice, just practice. Just do the thing. It's easy to overthink it. Put that curve in there a little bit more. Let's head back to the bell skiver. Got my piece of scrap with me here, so let's see what this looks like. The difference between, so the same setup there, and you saw the kind of difficulty we had skiving the Saffiano. This one here is just perfection. The image of perfection. Again, I'm only going to do 3 out of 4 sides there, because this side here is the inside edge. You know, basically that stitch line on the inside of the wallet that folds the cards in. I want that to be a little bit thicker because it's hard when you get something very, very thin to have a clean looking stitch on there. So I want to leave myself a little bit of extra room on just that edge so I can make that look nicer. The outside edges, there's going to be extra thickness on it, but on this one here, it's only going to be, just the liner and the 2 card slots. I don't have to worry about the extra backing and things like that. So I can afford to leave a bit of thickness there. So I'll show you that on the other camera when we get back to it. Yeah, that's money. Beautiful. That's what I would call cash money. It's a little hard to spot. Let's see if I can. Might be a little more evident on that one there. You can just kind of see on the edges there the difference of the skive there. If you get down to the try to hold them together here so you can see it. So here's the full thickness, the 1/2 millimeter, versus the skived edge. You can see that's almost down to a perfect feather edge at the edges there, and that's just the vagaries of skiving leather. Some of them skive better than others. There are some days where I almost think, gosh, I'd be better off just hand skiving this, and then I end up doing it. And some days everything works out. It's just kind of luck of the draw. Make a couple quick markings on this piece here. I'm just going to use a pencil. But yeah, simple card wallets is a great way to learn. You'll learn everything from that. You'll learn stitching, you'll learn cutting, edge dressing, and pattern drafting, which is the hardest of all of them. It took me 4 card wallets, the most simple of wallets, to learn how to make one that worked. It took me that many just to get one that had the dimensions right to where you could put cards in it, take them out easily. Forgive me, I can't pronounce Cyrillic, but if you give me the phonetic of your name, I'll be able to address you. But this actually is a goatskin project. This Saffiano print is goatskin. It's basically, as I understand it, it seems to be, it's from Aleran in France. It is their regular chev, but they print this texture on it, so it is the same. This is, in fact, goatskin, though it may not necessarily look like it. Most of what I do, almost all of my exotic wallets are goatskin in some way. With noted exception, actually, this one I just finished, the one I was showing on Instagram. This one actually, I just dropped it. This is an alligator wallet. This is Testimoro Matte from Amtan, one of my favorites. But this is actually using a Botero inside rather than goatskin. Customer liked the finish of this. That's what we went with on this one. This one's a little bit of a different construction method on it, but no less beautiful. And they picked this nice gradient of color here. Well, not so much gradient, just two-tone really, but brown and dark brown Botero with the Testimoro. Really, really nice match on that, with thread to match the dark. I was very happy with how this one turned out. I'm hoping to package this up and send it out in the mail later today after the stream here. So most of them are goatskin, not always. But this one is, in fact, goatskin. Yeah, I really like it. They had a very classy vision with that. I was very happy with the way those two colors worked together. And we tried to do a little bit of that with this one, but it both a blessing and a curse to be so picky about color. Neither of us could find anything that really looked right. Yeah, brown is underrated, and I say this quite frequently. People tend to discount brown just because, when you think of leather, you think of brown naturally. So people tend to try to do something different than that just to stand out. And I think it's far more impressive to have a good use, an elegant, pretty use of brown than it is to do with any other color, wild, bright colors and things like that. I'm always more impressed by that. All right, so it's a little hard to tell. You can see just some quick pencil marks on there. And I really don't need to, but I like to. I'm going to take my scribe and I'm going to scuff this surface a little bit. With Salpa or Salamander, it's debatable whether or not you have to do this. I prefer to. I like to scuff this. Important part of any project is, of course, the prep work. Well, that didn't take long at all, but I feel better having done it. On some wax paper. I need to fill my glue pot here. Probably today. Probably very shortly here. Possibly right now. Oh. I'm down to the very dregs of the glue left in my jar here. Yeah, I'm just taking that and just lining it up visually with the pencil marks I just made. No need to be more complicated than that. If you have designed your template well, all your measuring should be done in designing the template, leaving very little, if any, measuring to be done on the leather. I have the luxury of having built this wallet many, many times before, so I know and I trust implicitly the markings from my pattern. I know that this all goes together. So other than double checking, I never have to measure anything, which is where you start to save time. And again, that's why I don't feel bad about spending time, going through and doing these little cuts here and there. I make it up quite handsomely by having a good template that saves me time in more complicated and more important ways. I think I am going to fill this. I think I'm going to add some glue to this pot. I almost, again, not thinking, I almost just opened it up and dumped it onto that piece of salpa rather than in the pot, but figure. Don't need a whole lot. Just a good dollop. That'll do me. That'll get me through this project and a couple more. This is the Sewa water-based glue for almost everything. Ironically enough, except the actual assembly of these wallets. It does not like gluing Chev or Saffiano to itself. It'll glue it fine to other things, but you try to glue that finished side down, it does not respond well. So we're going to switch to different glue here shortly. Oh, ew. Wonderful. And it's just about 1 o'clock. Hey, thank you for the sub. Much appreciated. It's 1 o'clock. I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to grab a drink of water, hit the head. Then when I get back, we'll start putting the V-slots down and actually assembling the wallet, making it into, a wallet rather than just a collection of parts, a miserable pile of secrets. I'm going to throw the be right back sign on. I'll be back in about 2-3 minutes. Go ahead and grab a drink. We'll come back. Then, as I'm stitching, I'll probably ramble a bit about December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. But, yeah, we'll probably get to the boring part of this one here. So, be back in a few minutes. I will see you shortly. We'll carry on from there. All right, we're back, and we actually have a visitor. A big boy. 1 o'clock is his lunchtime, so he expects something from me. He's very unhappy that he's not getting it. I know. Come on. I know. He'll just have to wait a little bit. He'll manage. So I see there's a couple questions. Do you ever experience, after skiving and pushing with the glass, any stretching? Yes, that does happen. So you have to be careful of that. With Saffiano, it's less of a risk just because the density of it kind of prevents it from doing most of that. But with Chev, especially, you'll have some of that. In most cases, it's not enough to matter. Again, with going over it after creasing it and things like that, you would be surprised how much of that can be hidden, or if not hidden, altogether fixed with putting that crease in there. Generally, it straightens it out quite a bit. So in cases where I have had it stretch, very rarely do I redo any of it. Most of it ends up, it ends up coming out in the wash with the creaser, and you would never know. So you want to be careful of it. You don't want to skive it too thin, but even if you do get some stretching, a lot of times you can fix it. So not the answer most people would have expected, I think, but yeah, you would be shocked. The Christmas order list is going well, Tom. This is actually the last wallet I have promised for Christmas, so that's why I'm streaming it rather than doing it silently like I have been for the past couple of weeks. But that's why I have not been streaming over the past few weeks. I wanted to get through my the critical items on my list there, and again, this being the last one, I figured out what the hell we'll get back to, because I missed streaming. I like doing it. I like getting to talk, so I wanted to get back to it, and I felt bad that I have not done it for a little bit. So thank you for waiting patiently for me to work through this. But Sophia, I hope that answered your question there. And if you need further clarification on it, please by all means do ask. Thank you for the question. So we're now ready to go ahead and start putting this together. First step will be getting these slots glued down here, so we'll start with that. But I was thinking as I was getting my water, I mentioned earlier before I left that I would talk about this a little bit. And Pearl Harbor Day only comes once a year, so deliver, really? Hold on. Did I miss a delivery? Let's see. Hang on 1 second. Let me look. They were not kidding. It was delivered. Oh, thank you, Armando. Oh, well, you know what? Before we get to Pearl Harbor, let's do something more fun. We'll do, why not? Everybody loves a good unboxing. I really need to sharpen this knife. There we go. There we go. Come on now. Everybody watch Wyatt cut himself on live camera. Come on now. Literal perfect timing. It could not be timed any better. Oil boss, I'm always waiting for a delivery of a clue. Oh, yes. Yes. Absolutely. We'll take it. Thank you. What perfect timing. That's fantastic. Thank you, Armando. A good trade. A good transaction, as always. Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you. I think I'll pull a nice espresso shot with that later. I'll send you a picture. What a delightful time to be alive. I was laughing back in March for my birthday. Uh, Mike Attard from England. I woke up and there was a dozen donuts on my doorstep that somebody sent me for my birthday. I had no idea who, because it was simply from Mike, and I knew several Mikes who could have sent that. Here it came. It was an order placed from across an ocean to send me donuts on my birthday. What a delightful time to be alive. Thank you very much, Armando. I appreciate it. Like I said, we were just literally today, if you didn't catch it, I was telling my wife, we're out of coffee, but don't worry, Armando has sent us some. It will be here soon. In fact, I bet it'll be here today. Sure as shit, there it was. Thank you kindly. As much as I like whole bean, I do have a soft spot for the pre-ground just because of the convenience for it. This, perfect. As I say many times, I have never turned down a cup of coffee. I've never found a cup of coffee that I wouldn't drink. All coffee, very good. So we're getting ready to glue these down, and I'm just taking my scribe and scuffing the finished side. It was from the worst Mike. Mike Attard is the worst of the Michaels. Ugh, terrible. My least favorite Michael. So we're switching glues now. Like I said, we're switching from the Sewa water-based glue to the Aqualim 315 water-based contact glue. Big difference. Whereas the Sewa gives you some working time, this really, when used properly, does not. And that has its advantages. Each glue has its place. So I recommend keeping, one of each type in your inventory. You'll come across times where you need more working time. You'll come across times where you need an instant bond, and that's pretty much what this one is. But the biggest reason I use it is that the Sewa, like I mentioned earlier, simply does not like bonding this leather. It'll bond the flesh side to flesh side just fine. Finish side to finish side, or finish side to flesh, much, much less cooperative. I'd say the only downside to this glue is, again, because of the way I use glue. I use a lot of it. It tends to be a little gummy to stitch through. So that's the only downside I have to say about it. But otherwise, it is a fantastic option. Set that up, and we'll let that glue cure. You'll notice when I apply it, it is white. When it's not white, that means it's tacked up and it's ready to go. Tacking is a term that we use to, from painting to indicate that the top of the surface is no longer a liquid. It is more or less a solid or a semi-solid. That's what tacked up means. Tacking can also be a term. It can be a verb used when cleaning the surface of a car or of a painted edge, in which you take a tack cloth and wipe the dust off of it. We're going to leave these here, and we'll observe. When these are no longer white, we'll know it's time to go ahead and press them together. But my mother's calling me. I'm going to have to wait. We have important things to do. But like I said, as I keep bringing up and then not following up, today is December 5th. December 7th is Pearl Harbor Day. And I find Pearl Harbor, again, being a history nerd, being a World War II nerd, being a naval history nerd, I find it particularly interesting because not only is it, the start of American entry into that particular conflict, I think it's indicative of the flaws in the way that is taught to people, because many people don't understand it. Many people don't really know why it happened. Why did the Japanese do this? What was their aim? What did they hope to happen from this? And generally, when you ask, at least when you ask Americans about Pearl Harbor, and my suspicion is probably when you ask most people around the world about Pearl Harbor, they'll say, the Japanese, did a dastardly surprise attack against the United States, and, we got mad and we entered the war and we, kicked their butt. That's not really how it happened. That isn't really it. And the biggest misconception about it is, and this is controversial to say without clarifying, because people tend to get mad when you tell them this, but Pearl Harbor was not initially intended to be a surprise attack. Now, there's some caveats to that. It was meant to be a surprise in that the delegation to the United States, the Japanese ambassador, was supposed to issue a notification of the start of hostilities. He was only supposed to do that morning, so they were only giving us a couple hours warning. But still, they were still saying, hey, in a couple hours, we're going to attack Pearl Harbor, so be ready. In terms of war fighting, that is not a lot of time. That is still a surprise. That is still a hell of a way to open a conflict. So yeah, it's kind of a shitty thing to do. But it was not intended to be suddenly the planes appear and they're dropping bombs. Unfortunately, that is how it happened. Why did it happen that way? There was a delay in communications, and the Japanese ambassador fulfilled his duty several hours too late after the attack had already happened. Why was this happening at all? Why did the Japanese pursue this course of action? Because up until this time, another thing that people forget is that we had nominally good, even close relations with the Japanese. It was in our best interest to. After World War I, it became pretty clear that the Pacific area of the world was going to be dominated by either us or Japan, and both sides found it in their mutual interest to work together towards that. There was no need to fight over that just yet. When the Japanese start invading mainland China and other places around in the purpose of expanding their economic influence, things start to get a little shaky, and that's when we start to see relations break down a bit. But up until that time, we were pretty friendly with one another. Yamamoto knew most of the people. He was familiar with many of his adversaries, and he liked America and he liked Americans. He spent time here and studied here, so he's widely regarded as being against taking this course of action. And there's a whole story about how that came to be and why he did that. So that's a tale for another day. But the long and short of it is, they convinced him to create this plan to deliver what was intended to be a killing blow to the U.S. Navy. And in the Japanese manner of thinking, they expected to do this. They expected to deliver this devastating blow to the United States in the hopes of forcing us to the negotiation table, with them being in a strong position. We have a navy, you do not anymore. There's nothing you can really do about it. Let's not fight this anymore. Let us do our thing, leave us go, and we don't need to have a war over this. And that almost might have worked. Because again, in Yamamoto's idea, his conception of it was, we're not truly surprising them. We're not stabbing them in the back. We're giving them fair warning, and then we're going to beat the hell out of them. We're going to hit them with the combined premier naval air force in the world that nobody really understands yet. And that's almost how it happened. Again, through a miscommunication, through a delay in that transmission of those orders, it ends up being a surprise attack. And in that instant, the American public opinion would never permit negotiation. It would never permit anything other than an unconditional surrender on the part of the Japanese. We were out for blood, and we were going to get it. There was never going to be any other outcome than that. And I find it interesting to look at it that way. You have to understand from the opposite perspective, why did these things happen? Why did they feel that war was the only thing they could do? And it's important to keep those kind of things in mind, especially in light of today. We are unfortunately seeing the first European war in 70 years. And it'll probably be a long time before we understand the whys of that. I'm very curious to see what that ends up being. Totally different circumstances, totally different, chain of events there. But the why matters, and I'm bothered personally, again, as a history nerd, that the why never really gets taught or understood by people. So that's that little topic there. I didn't really have anything more to say about it than that, but keep that in mind. As a closing note on that, I do think that I like the Pacific War because I like the outcome of it, in that 70 years later, or actually 80 years later now, we have the privilege of we have more or less reconciled our differences with Japan. We have very good relations with them, and I like The idea, I know many people who have captured Japanese battle flags, and they go through the effort of finding who they belong to and sending these family heirlooms back. And the argument could be made that they are, if you have one, if you're an American and you possess one, it is your family heirloom. So I like I like that reconciliation. I like that interaction between two people on the other side of the world in an effort to make amends and to heal. I think both nations have healed pretty well from that by doing that kind of thing. So that has nothing to do with leatherworking at all. But here we are. In doing that, guess what? Our glue's dried, so we can actually go ahead and put that together now. So take these, stick them together. So again, as I mentioned with the templates, I don't need anything to measure. All these lines here indicate where everything goes. So I know all I've got to do is take this top edge, stick it up against that, and mash it up as tight as it can get. That's it. It's done. So we'll do that now. That flat. We're going to give it a little bit of extra convincing. The Aqualim, the contact glue, I find responds very well to percussive convincing. And we'll do the other one here. Cool. All right, so there we go. So as you can see, we already have this starting to look like something now. Go ahead and stitch the bottoms of these down. Go. And we can now stitch those. Get my thread here. This wallet, being all marine, will be all marine, all blue. So blue thread, blue edges, you name it, the whole 9 yards. Now, I've talked a little bit in Discord about switching to a method of doing these T-slots that doesn't require any gluing. I've done 1 or 2 wallets with it, and I just don't know quite how I feel about it. Every time I do it, I feel like I would have been quicker if I had just done the stitching and the gluing and the punching. Every single time I've done it, I feel like I would have been quicker doing it my way than doing it this way. So I just... There's something to be said for... Yes, you get extra strength from, not perforating the bottom of it, but I question how much that really matters. I question the validity of that argument in a practical sense. I don't think that much tension gets put here. Yes, some does, but you would have to really be abusing the wallet to actually put enough tension there to really distort that. At least I think. And the one wallet I have had fail from overstuffing failed up here. It was blown out at the top. The bottom stitch was just fine. I think that people... Drop my thread, hold on. I don't know, I have to explore it some more, and I feel like I'm missing something with the methodology. Maybe there's some trick that I'm missing to make it easier. I feel like I'm close to figuring it out, but at the same time, gosh, I don't know if spending all that time is truly worth it in the end. Just don't know. Do not know. Ah, come on now. All messed up today. Look at that. I go talking about Pearl Harbor, and this is what I get. I scared everybody off, and I pinched my hands in the stitching pose. I brought this on myself. Now we're just going to stitch the bottoms of these card slots there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it later, Armando. I've got to run a couple errands after this. I'll probably stream for until about 2 o'clock our time, and then call it a day because I gotta do a couple errands. But this evening when I get back, I think I'm gonna be ready for a good strong cup of something. I thank you, Tom. So it's finally it's good to have some confirmation on that somebody else thinks the same way. I just don't see it. I don't see that being a big failure point. And I'd be very curious to see if anybody has seen that. In fact, hold on. I'll show you. I still have the pieces of it. I just did it. You're in Discord the other couple days. This was the wallet I had. Fortunately, they were a local customer. So this was Botero. I don't think it's a stupid idea, Sophia, and you wouldn't really have to sacrifice a whole wallet. You could easily just do what I've done here and test it till it failed. In this case, I let the customer do it for me. This was orange Botero, and this wallet was 2 years old, and whatever they did to it, it looks like they drove a truck over it. I mean, this thing was just devastated. And they sent me a picture of it, and they had 8 cards stuffed in this side here, and you can see right here, this is where it went. Now, it looks like on this side, they never used this slot back here, because you can see how it's pushed flat against the back. Now, on this side here, it looks like they did. This one didn't fail. This one held together. Let's take a look down here. We can actually see how much. So you can see down there on the bottom, it got stretched a little bit, but nowhere near the point of failure. And even up here, where it really got stretched. Because I remember when I made this was before I was gluing. This was before I was forming card slots over cards. So I know that I glued this one completely flat. And that's how much it stretched. It stretched that much, and it's still stretched, but it is not to a failure point yet. This one here was really, really toast. I may have actually just skived this one a little bit too thin. Yeah. Interesting. Repairs are very, very useful. Very, very instructive. Yeah, there was a lot of cards in there. There were way too many cards. On a wallet that is intended to hold 4 to 8 cards total, they had 8 on one side. I found that very interesting. Anyway, I hope that was useful to you. This fell a stitch down here. I don't know, maybe I should have saved the Pearl Harbor talk for this time when I'm stitching. Oh. I would like to go see the Arizona Memorial. My grandfather, right after Pearl Harbor, was another interesting. Yeah, he was gosh, I think he was only 19, 1941. But they of course heard on the radio that the United States had been attacked, and they had never heard of Pearl Harbor. They had no idea where Pearl Harbor even was. But again, to indicate the popular sentiment at the time, the idea that we would be surprise attacked in that fashion was enough to make him and 4 of his brothers all immediately go sign up for the Navy. They all enlisted in the Navy. And by the time they were finished with their training and everything, they were all parceled out to different ships because of course, I'm sure you're familiar with them, the Sullivans at Guadalcanal had all died on the same vessel. So they all went to different ships, but all 5 of them went to the Navy. Tom, yes, absolutely. I posted some pictures in the Discord chat. Basically, what I did is I just rebuilt the interior. I built 2 new sets of card slots because there was no saving that at that point. If he was doing that to it, I just figured, well, he's better off just having entirely new interior to it. So that was what I did. But my grandfather, when he finally did get to his ship and get deployed, they were fitting out of Pearl Harbor because it was a brand new vessel. So they went to Pearl Harbor to finally complete their fitting out and shake down the ship. He remembered they were in the process of salvaging the USS Oklahoma, which, if you're familiar, was a Nevada-class battleship that had capsized, sitting upside down in the harbor. And he remembered that he had always heard, from talking to people, that Pearl Harbor was supposed to be bright blue, beautiful Pacific Hawaiian waters, and he remembered that the water was black, just from the oil continuously leaking out of the sunken ships that were still there. And this was a good 2 years after Pearl Harbor had happened. It was still that bad. The salvage operation for that ship was truly a monumental effort. And just about done here. My grandfather started off as a fireman first class, which is not a firefighter, but a fireman, which is engine room duties. He was promoted to a machinist's mate first class. So he, with his partner, they were both fairly skilled machinists, so they ended up being on a special watch where they did not have to stand watch normally, but they were always on call. So basically, they didn't have to stand watch. They could kind of relax. But whenever something was wrong or something needed done, they worked until it was done. They did not take breaks. They were not permitted. Their watch did not finish until they had fixed whatever problem there was. So when the engines broke down, which they did somewhat frequently, it was his job, with his partner, to go in and repair them until it was done. So that could take an hour, that could take 12 hours, it could take days, depending on the job. But that was what he did. He was on a destroyer escort, which is a diesel electric boat. Or rather, no, not diesel electric, just diesel, I'm pretty sure. So big diesel motors and on a little teeny tiny tin can boat. I chose not to charge for that one. The principle of it bothered me. My wife scolded me for it. And the argument can certainly be made both ways. My ultimate reasoning for it was that I knew the person. They were friends of friends. So you have to do right by your friends. But also the idea of paying good money for a wallet. I won't lie to you. My pieces are not cheap. They're not inexpensive. So you pay good money to get me. That should mean something. So if you do something, even if you do a dumb thing, like putting 8 cards in it, the service expectation still exists. So I opted not to charge for this. Now, I kind of work on an everybody gets one free one rule. This first time, sure. Now, if he does it again, if he manages to blow that apart again, that one's on him. So. But it took me, I would say, if you had to do a repair and you decided to charge, I would say, do your hourly rate or do it at a certain percentage of a discount if you like. But as with everything else, you'll figure out how long it takes you to do something and charge accordingly. I set my hourly rate, and it kind of varies depending on how quickly I work. I try not to get too hung up on it. But generally, my hourly rate, I try to keep it around 30 an hour. And if I do that, if I'm anywhere from 25 to 30 an hour, I'm plenty happy with that because it's still significantly better than anything I would make, working a day job, here in Youngstown. So that makes me happy. As long as I get that, I'm good. And again, that comes down to how efficient you are. So Your hourly rate can certainly increase depending on how quickly you can get through something. What was I doing? What the hell was I doing here? Oh, okay. I remember now. So, back to the subject at hand. We've got our two V slots here. So these are stitched down. These are ready. These will now hold cards. Again, like I talked about before, the reason we do it to this piece is that we can now glue something over the back of this. So when your hands go in there, you don't feel this thread line. It's underneath finished leather. So what we're going to do next, I want to glue a liner to the back of this. And I like doing that before I put this down, only because I like having a little bit more access to press that down here. I like being able to more directly reach that and glue it and press it down. So we're gonna do that real quick. Trim this a little bit just to make it a little easier to tell what size piece I need. I'm excited to get into that Mayorga. I liked it a lot the last time you sent it, Armand, so I'm stoked. That made very good espresso. So now this, as I mentioned earlier, this is a liner. So this is not something that you're going to ever see. It is something you'll feel, but not something you'll see. So in terms of utilizing parts of the hide efficiently, again, like I did before, where I had the back side of this, we kind of get a piece of the edge out here. And if you look closely, you can see there's a little bit of roughness here. We're going to use this for our liner because, again, never something you'll see. It's unlikely that you will feel too much of it, but it is still finished leather. And we want to make efficient use of this hide, so we're going to use that for something here. I would never use it for something you see, but for a liner, it is perfectly acceptable. It's not holding any structure. It's not being viewed. Perfectly usable for something like that. I'm just going to lay the piece directly over top of it. Trim it out. There. Move down further down. Again, same kind of thing here. A little bit of rough grain there. Perfect for a liner. There we go. Right. Trim this a little bit closer. And for this in here. And we're going to take these parts back to the bell skiver. Oh, no. There we go. Good skive on that. Nice clean edge. Nice and thinned out. Again, like I said, I'm going to leave that inside edge at its thickness because I want to have a nice, crisp, clean stitch line there. Really, I'm more concerned about getting it thin at the edges. There we go. Beautiful. There we go. So there's our skives there. I really, really like darker roasts. I'm a fan of dark roasts, especially for espresso shots. Okay. Try and glue this in one shot, so I'm going to put a lot of glue down on it and try to spread it quickly. Sometimes I'm quick enough, sometimes I'm not. Let's see what happens. Nope, I'm gonna have to put another bead down. Like I said, I don't know what it is about this stuff, but it tends to drink up the glue very quickly. Nice. Now, when you reach in the back, that is the only indication of that thread that you'll. It's pretty low profile. Do you have to do that? No, I like to. The argument can be made that you don't really have to do any of this fully lining stuff, you know, for the card slots and things like that. But I like to make that product. I like to say, yeah, my shit is fully lined. Mine is the equal of anybody's. At least I think. I am rather biased. Go. All right. If I was smart, today I am not, but if I were smart, what I would have done, before I had done this, I would have put some glue down on the back of those card slots. I don't have to wait for it. But I forgot, so we have a little bit of waiting ahead of us. Not that big of a deal. All right, here we go. I always find this part tedious. I hate gluing the liner down, but it's very important. Now our liners are in place. We were able to get there and pinch that all down nice and tight into these back parts, get behind this card slot if we want to, but everything's feeling quite good there. That's how I feel, Sophia. I feel exactly the same way, especially if you're going to go through the effort of using goat skin or things like that. If you're going to use this nice material, use it to its fullest, I feel. And a little bit of glue stuck to that. But fortunately, one of the nice things about water-based glue is as long as you have a damp towel handy, it wipes right off. So, problem. Then, of course, when it's finally finished, I'll go over it, wipe it all down, polish it, and that lifts up any final marks that are left. Scuff around these edges a little bit. This is the back. Here. When you're gluing finish side to finish side, this scuff is very important. You can get away without doing it on flesh side or sometimes even finish side to flesh side, but if you're doing finish to finish, you really have to do this. Okay. Now back to the contact glue. You could, oh hey, Dura, nice to see you. You could get away without using a Salpa layer. Like I said, the sacrifice you would make for that, and it is debatable if this is really a sacrifice or not, is you would effectively, so if this piece of Salpa was just your back liner, you would then be stitching through it, and you'd have a stitch visible or touchable on the back side. There are cases where that doesn't matter that much. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. On smaller wallets like this where there is no billfold, and you'll be using this, these inside pockets probably pretty regularly, I like to do it. On like my bifolds and things like that, sometimes I get away without doing it just to save extra thickness. Because I kind of figure that you're really not going to be using those as often, so that is a sacrifice you can make. But really, that would be the only difference between them. So you do not need to. I just like to. And certainly you would be, it'd be simpler to not have one because it's one less layer. Another reason I like to use the Salpa layer is that it also lets me do, well, no, actually, as long as it was lined on the backside, it wouldn't matter. So I was going to say it also lets me do, the flush fit of the top section there, but as long as you were gluing to some kind of liner, it would be not a difference. Getting down to the dregs of this bottle of glue. I'm going to sneeze. It's coming. Pardon me. All right. Glue on my hands. Now you can't hear it, but I have my little heater running in the background. Maybe you can whenever I'm talking. I'm going to accelerate the cure of this glue. Bring it down here. Sticking it in front of the output of the heater. Should tack that up pretty quickly. Now before we glue those card slots down, we're going to stick a card inside preceding card slots. And that helps to mitigate what happened on that orange wallet. We give a little bit of extra width to that to account for the fact that there will be cards behind it. That's one other way of accounting for stretching or stuffing or things like that, because people are going to do it. No way for you to stop them. You might as well take efforts to mitigate the damage. Oh, that's good. That's dried up enough. Right. And with that card in there, we're going to glue this down. Yeah, it's actually bright and sunny today, Ramon. It's still only about maybe 30-ish degrees out there, so it's not exactly warm, but no snow yet. We're just as likely to get rain on Christmas as we already get snow. It's Ohio for you. And taking the glass slicker, we're going to press that down at the edge. And we're doing that to try to really flush up these joints here. Make that really flush, really tight. Yeah, lessons learned, Zelm. So then when we take that out, you can see we have a little bit of build on that. How this one's up a little higher. Still flush at the edges, but there's a little bit of extra space there. That works very nicely. Let's do the next one. That as well, Sophia, and then it's cheaper too. It's simply a matter of cost. As much as I would like to say I'm in it purely for the art, I am here to make money. So I have to be careful with how I spend it and how I'm spending my materials. That looks quite smart already. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. There we go. Very good. Perfect. Very, very good. I think what I'm going to do, because I see it's already 1:45 here, I've been streaming for 2 hours already, which is about I've come to find 2 hours is about my limit. I've done 3 on occasion, but after I do that, my throat is usually torn apart. So what I think I'm going to do here, I'm going to call it here in about 15 minutes. I'm going to trim these edges here and punch some holes and maybe start stitching it. But any final questions or things that you're unsure about or want to talk about, I'd say start the final round now. Go ahead and throw them in the chat, and I'll be able to hopefully answer them before the time runs out. So let me say we got about 15 minutes. I'm going to shut it off. So final questions, final comments, send them. Now, clean these. These got a little dusty from sitting here. Here's the rough outline of our final pieces here. I'm going to do, with them all glued together, I'm going to trace my template over just to have a clearer picture of how these should fit. And actually, what I think I'll even do, I'll do it fresh. Now, if you're like I am and you use the white gel pen, you'll find that sometimes with Saffiano it's hard to clean off with just water. Water and a brush is what does it. I don't necessarily oil and wax it. I do hit it with polish. Sapphire Medale d'Or 1925 Pate Deluxe. The tin can of the paste polish works very well. I do that because I find that lifts up any glue. It gives a nice sheen to the leather and cleans it. So I do polish them. Generally, they do not need to be oiled. This step here I really didn't need to do, but I don't know, it felt like the right thing to do today. We're going to clean our marks up. That's another reason I like the gel pen, is that you saw, it was 2 hours ago I made those marks, and they still came off with water and a brush. So I can remake them, I can adjust them, move them, whatever. Actually, I'm glad I did, because I see that this bottom edge line is a little higher than it actually would be, so I'm glad I double-checked my dimensions on there. Sometimes I do it, and these are spot-on, dead nuts exact, and sometimes they're a little bit off, and it just kind of, I don't know, maybe Mercury's in retrograde or something like that. Pick whatever reason you want, but leather is an imperfect material. If you're trying to get perfect measurements, perfect dimensions, and things like that, the only way you're going to do that is with a clicker press. And even then, it's not 100% guaranteed. There will always be something that affects it or changes it. Hell, sometimes it feels like even just looking at it changes it. But with these all glued together, I'm going to take my template now and I'm going to retrace. These are my final lines. I know that this here is all glued together. That is the final dimension of it. That's the final shape there. Another reason I like this white gel pen is, again, you saw how much I cleaned off of it. Look how bright and visible that line is there. For something that is removable, that's amazing. So can't recommend it enough. But it has to be a good gel pen. The junk ones from Staples, whatever, they don't cut it. Got to be these Japanese jelly pens. Perfect. There we go. So there's our lines. Pardon me, I need to blow my nose. I don't have a tissue. I'll be right back. Okay, that's better. Hold on. A visitor. He wants to say hello. He does. He does. Nice. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Yeah. Dad hasn't been streaming for a little bit. You haven't been a camera cat for a couple. He wants that. They'll sit on that chair there and watch the birds because I put a bird feeder out there. So this is one of their favorite spots to be. In fact, you go past the coffee, you can sit there. All right. So we've marked out our final lines. These gel pens, there's one downside to them. They do take a minute or two to dry. Otherwise, you can smear them around, but that's hardly a real problem. Sophia, I thank you for the good questions today. It was a pleasure to answer your questions. And to everybody else as well, Zelm, Tom, thank you all for joining me. Armando, of course, thank you. We're going to trim that edge down. Get a nice flush edge there. Nice true dimensions. And I do this trim method because of what Tom is talking about there. As you construct it, as you interact with it, you will stretch it and deform it a little bit and things like that. So part of the reason I do it this way is that it allows me to work around that, and it gives me breathing room to make my final dimensions after everything's assembled and all that. I'm not fighting against something that must fit exactly. They can fit somewhat imperfectly before I trim them to a more or less exact size. Nope, it's my pleasure. Like I said, I'm hoping to get back to streaming more regularly. It was really just working through the holiday season just kind of kept me away from it. But I hope to get back to it. And I think as I start this bag odyssey, I may try to stream a good bit of that. That'll be a little more freeform, just because with bags, again, it's been a hot minute since I made one. So there's a lot of me just kind of sitting here thinking about what I'm doing and trying to figure out how I want to do something. You get to see a lot of me just doing this when I'm working on the briefcase. But that's coming up. I think that'll be my streaming project for a couple weeks here. I got to figure out the leather first. Like I said, I'm thinking of using Togo, but I can't find anybody who carries the navy. So, you know somebody selling the navy blue Togo or the Alpine calf? Let me know. I'm looking for it. Or if you have any other good suggestions, we'll make a sweet bag. All ears. Using our dividers, we're going to go mark that line on the edge there. Art in motion. I don't know about all that, but sure won't turn down that compliment. Thank you. And I know I've done everything right when I go to punch these holes here, and the tines of my pricking irons are perfectly bracketing the top and bottom of the pieces, which this one is. That's just right. Happy with that. Hold on. Don't move it. Shift it. And when you're doing these, the pricking irons, when you're doing your edges there, when you're punching your stitch holes, you want to get down low. You want to get down low and really look at it. Benny, hello. Thank you for the sub. Oh, what a can of worms you've opened there, my friend. I have not, and I've been very interested in it. There's a couple different ones out. There's that Milo, and there's another one, but they're both claiming to be mushroom or fungus-based leathers, and I'm very interested in that. Unfortunately, they will not sell me any. They only seem interested in selling it to either big designers or big brands, which I feel like is antithetical to the cause they're trying to promote. They're promoting ethical and green business practices, and then they're only selling it to the biggest companies who've been causing all these problems. And I'm very interested in trying it. I know a couple people who've tried the cork leather, which I think looks very nice, but the two big problems with it come down to either it isn't durable, which is the cork leather's problem. It looks very cool, but it just does not hold up from what I've seen. Or it's plastic, which it's coming out more and more. And don't quote me on this. I have to find... There was somebody who had sent me the information on it, and I have to double check it before I say this is 100% fact. So I'm not quoting this as fact. but from what I have been led to understand, all of the all of the mycelium or fungal based leathers still use plastic in them. So what the hell good is that? Who wants that? All other vegan leathers have some plastic in them. PU leather and things like that. Those are all plastic or petroleum based. So that, again, that seems kind of pointless to me. But find me one who will just sell me some, and I'll be happy to give you my opinion on it. I want to try it because there are people interested in buying it. They want, people, regardless of how you feel about it, people want to buy it, and I want to serve that market because it'd be good to have that offering. And I think that in the future, if these things are as promising as they're certainly advertised them to be, I want to be on it. I want to know how it works. I want to know how to use it. And no, they won't do it. You can ask them, and they're like, oh no, yeah, we're only selling it to specific people, and all of those specific people are pretty damn big. So it I get into that occasionally with the Milo people on their Instagram. Every now and then I'll get a hankering, and I'll go fight with them a little bit. But no, they haven't done it. They won't do it. Was it you, Tom? Thank you. I knew it was somebody who had posted in the Discord, but and of course they're super hush hush about that. You bring that out and nobody wants to. That's a great way for them to immediately stop talking with you. But I think more people should be taking them to task on that. I think there should be more of an uproar about that. You want to claim to be good for the environment and ecological and stuff, and you're going to sell to Gucci and Louis Vuitton, and like I don't get it. I don't understand it. But Benny, if you do find one, I'm very curious about it. So if you find one that you're able to work with and that you like, please let me know. That is something I'm interested in. An excellent question. Thank you for asking. I wish I had a better answer for you, other than just me proselytizing again. But that's that one is up in the air. So. Very curious about it. Tom, if you get a chance, if you would do me the kindness of sending me a link to that again, I'd love to look over that one more time. I would say at that point, Benny, if you're looking to you want to find a nice leather bag, I would say you're better off buying a canvas bag, because either, like I said, if it's PU, polyurethane, that is plastic or petroleum based. The other alternatives, like I said, just don't hold up. The cork leather doesn't hold up, but wax canvas will last a lifetime, and it is tried and true. So it's hard to go wrong with that. So I would look at that instead. That's something you could feel pretty good about still. And still get something that'd be worth your money. A good waxed canvas or a good, duck bag will certainly last a long time. They can be made in many different shapes and they look great. Orvis, I would take a look at. If you're looking for to spend that kind of dosh. Mostly hunting and traditional English styled stuff, but nice stuff. And that's a great point, Tom. That is a fantastic point. Plastic is still vegan leather. I think on that note, it's getting to be about that time. So final comments, final questions. I'm going to shut it down here in about 5 minutes here. But just to recap what we went over here, we've got these all made up now. These are looking good. So we made these 2 pieces here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces on each. There's 1 piece here for the top, the V slot, the bottom slot, the salpa structure, and the liner. So yeah, 5 pieces. Not a bad start to the day. We have these ready to stitch. We can crease them, dress them, paint them, and they'll be all set. And then we can go ahead and make the backing there. Now the backing is going to take a little bit of thought because it has been requested to have it be somewhat thick and padded. I haven't quite decided how I want to go about doing that, but I have a suspicion. So we'll see what where that leads me here. But pretty pleased with how this looks so far. Good outcome today. Start putting our tools away. think that'll probably be my work day for the day. Like I said, I've got a couple things I need to take care of, but get to it there. So again, thank you for joining me. I once again I apologize for my my hiatus with streaming, but I'm hoping to return to that. I can't promise that I'm going to be here again next week, so there might be another week or two's delay. And certainly around the holidays, I'll be kind of booked up with that, with doing holiday stuff. But I'm hoping around the start of shortly after the start of the year, I want to start my briefcase projects. I'm still looking for materials and hardware right now, but I'm hoping that that's going to be the thing I do in January and possibly January and February. We'll see. So I hope you'll join me for that. Again, looking for Togo. If you find Togo, or if you have any good suggestions for a bag material for me, let me know. I'm in the market. But I think that's about it. So I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you, as always, for joining me. Armando, thank you for the coffee and for the patronage, as usual. I will talk with you all later. I'll see you in Discord, or I'll see you on Instagram. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the questions. And thank you for the company. I hope you have a good day today.